So welcome everyone to our intro to email marketing with Edelweiss360. Today we have Sarah Richmond, Director of Communications and Marketing at Edelweiss, and Jamie Rogers Southern, Interim Executive Director of Bookmarks in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Sarah's going to discuss the program and run through creating a campaign. And Jamie's going to report in on some best practices her store uses for the program, and she'll share some stats on what's really worked well for their store. So we're going to begin with Sarah.
All right. Hey, everybody. As Linda Marie mentioned, I do all things marketing at Above the Tree Line. That's the company behind Edelweiss, and that includes all of our email marketing. And so I'm a pretty big fan of Edelweiss360 and how it works and what it does for stores. In fact, I was telling folks before we got started today that I'm lobbying pretty hard with our development team here for them to build me my own 360 that I can use for our own email marketing, especially because I love how it tracks from email all the way to sales conversions, and that's pretty rare to be able to do that. So anyway, I think it's really important right now because clearly email marketing has never been more important, as a lot of customers are either choosing not to shop in person quite yet, or stores actually have limited hours or might even be closed in terms of their brick and mortar store. And so email marketing, may have already been in place, but all of a sudden it's the way we're communicating with customers and really trying to drive online sales, which maybe were a small part of our business before the pandemic hit and now are a huge part. So this, of course, brings us to Edelweiss360. This was actually something that was born out of the ABA Winter Institute a couple years ago. As everything goes at Edelweiss and Above the Tree Line, it all comes from some idea or email or conversation we have with a customer, and it gets us thinking, and how could we do that? And then John, our founder, usually disappears for a weekend or something and comes back with some demo or some product to show us. And so we were actually beta testing this in the fall. And then the pandemic hit and stores had to close. And so we immediately made it available for stores for free. It is still free. Eventually, our plan is just to roll it into Edelweiss Plus Analytics subscriptions. If you don't use Edelweiss Plus Analytics, you're actually eligible for a free 12-month trial of that as well. So it's pretty low risk to give this a try. I mean, I definitely encourage stores to check it out. In addition to providing a system for stores to build targeted email campaigns, which I'm going to show in the system in a minute, it does also provide a mobile experience for consumers if you want to take advantage of that. So if that part of the system, if you kind of turn it on, if customers click on an email, it takes them to a curated, personalized online store for that customer, shows them things that they are most likely to be interested in. I'm going to stay focused on the email part today. I know that's what Jamie's talking about. I just wanted to mention that there are other features that you could take advantage of and that we continue to build on and expand based on what stores are asking for and what would be valuable for them. So Jamie's going to talk about how her store uses Edelweiss360. And I think it's important just to mention that, again, email marketing is not new. I'm sure you do it already. We're actually finding a lot of stores are trying Edelweiss360 or starting to use 360 in addition to the existing email marketing that they did. Probably most stores have some kind of newsletter, for example. But with 360, every email is customized and targeted, which really allows you to provide personal recommendations to customers as if you would do if they were in a store. So a question I get a lot is how is Edelweiss360 how is it different from your existing email platform like Constant Contact, which I use, I'm sure some of you guys use too, or MailChimp. And the answer to that is it's really integrating all these types of data. So everything's already there. So it has your store inventory, has your customer transaction history, has your staff reviews and your tags and your collections from Edelweiss. And of course, it goes without saying, it has all the title data from Edelweiss as well, which includes jacket covers. So there's no need to upload images into it. I do that all the time in Constant Contact, and it's really annoying. So I'm sure you guys feel that pain as well if you have to do that yourself. So 360 Targeting is also easy, and while you can certainly create targeted lists on your own by segmenting customers based on the type of titles they like, it can get really complicated, and it's certainly really time consuming. So most of us have to settle for what in marketing we call the spray and pray method, where you send one message or one newsletter out to all of your customers and hope you get some hits. And so what 360 does, and kind of what makes it different, is that it's really targeting them to, because targeted emails result in higher open rates and higher click rates and then higher sales conversions too, which I'm sure Jamie will talk a little bit about. So I'm going to jump into 360 and just kind of show how you create a campaign and how it works. I wish I had time to cover all the possible ways to use 360 because there's just so many options. I was talking earlier about how I just love going in to see what stores are doing, how they're using 360, because they're so creative. You can do campaigns to promote pre-orders, different genres, specific events, seasonal themes. Those are some of my favorite. Staff picks or shelf talkers, especially now that if customers aren't coming into your store to see the staff picks and the shelf talkers, you can bring them to them. We've seen stores do campaigns to push titles before they do returns, new releases. So just so many options. And again, I think the power is really coming from not sending a back to school campaign to all of your customers, but really targeting it to the customers who want that information, maybe to parents or customers who've purchased certain titles, similar titles in the past. And when you send that really relevant emails to your customers, they enjoy it, they find it valuable, and they want to hear from you more often. And so with that, I'm going to attempt to share my screen. Let me see if I can expand out here. Let's see if it will let me. Okay. Share the right screen. I've got 3 screens going. I don't know if you guys have home office setups. All right. Can you see Edelweiss on the screen?
Yes.
Right. I had to apologize. So my camera's on one. You get to see the side of my face while I do this, which I know is not too much fun. But so we're in Edelweiss right now. And so when 360 is activated for your account, there's a little 360 icon right in the top header there. And I'm going to click into that in just a minute. But before I do, I want to show you how 360 is integrated into Edelweiss as well, because this is one of my favorite things. So that if you're looking through a catalog, like right now I'm looking through this Education Spring 2021 catalog from Sterling, and you're thinking, oh, I definitely want to order this all action classic Tom Sawyer book. That sounds kind of funny. And so I'm going to add it to an order, for example, and I go, I'm going to want to promote that in an email campaign in the future. I can right from here, where that little 360 icon is, add it to a campaign or even add it to an event if I know that I have an event coming up where this might be related in somehow. So I can go and click on this, add to campaign, and it pulls up all of my active campaigns that I've already created in 360, or you can create a new campaign from here. Like maybe you're looking at a catalog and going, wow, PRH has got some really cool, gifts coming out. And I want to create a campaign to push these in a couple months or whatever that might be. So I can add it to a campaign right here. Like I have one in our demo account that I'm going to log into in a minute. I have one I created called New Graphic Novels for Kids, and I'm just going to add it to that. And it's that easy. So then when I go into 360 later, I already have sort of a list of titles that I can work from here. And so it's just a way to save yourself a bunch of time. And I don't know about you, I have like Post-it notes all over my workspace of like, don't forget to do this, this, or this. And this is just sort of you don't have to remember later. You can just do it right then. So that's one of my favorite things. But I'm going to click over to 360. If I click that icon, I come over to this. And I have to admit, this looks a little bit weird because this is a demo account, so there's not sales data in it, for example, so it's not quite as exciting as an actual store site. But But the good news is I can't break anything in it either because it's not actual live data. And so it's a good one for me to kind of play around in. But this is what 360 looks like. I can go back to Edelweiss anytime I want to here too. But it has all your active campaigns in the front and center here. This is very similar to any email marketing platform you've used before where you can access those there. But it also has some metrics off to the side there. We have a user forum where you can communicate with other stores that are using 360, maybe share ideas with them. You can add events here. So there's a couple loaded here. I don't even know what these are, some old world cooking event that we've added. But one thing I want to point out is this publisher boost, because I didn't mention this earlier, but this is something we're beta testing. And that is a way for stores to earn publisher marketing dollars. And so we have some publishers who have agreed to try this out with us, like HarperCollins, for example, or Sourcebooks, or IPG has some of them as well. I think there's about 10 publishers participating right now. And they have activated their titles so that if you happen to include, or you choose purposely to include, doesn't matter, one of their titles, you can earn money. And then we get money from HarperCollins and we pass that over to you. It's not something you have to take advantage of, but if you do, you can definitely earn some money by including their titles in your email campaigns. And the dollars that you can earn are based on a CPM basis. So it depends on how large the audience is and also how targeted the email is and kind of the placement of that title in your email. And so that's something to explore a little bit. It's kind of a fun thing to try. And Jamie, maybe you can talk about whether you've done any of that or seen any of that, or if it's been helpful or not. But let me just go in and show you how to create a campaign. And so I could go in and just click create new campaign. And I could say holiday gifts for kids, maybe, because this is on my mind. I have 2 boys and they've already started talking about the holidays. I know it's not that far away, but I'm not quite ready for it. So I can click into that here, holiday gifts for kids. And then I just get this little modal and it says add titles, events, or collections and add customers. And so from here I can go in and add whatever titles. Again, we saw earlier, like if I'd already created this, I could have been adding titles to this as I made orders or as I was just looking through Edelweiss, and I would already see those titles right there. But I could say, this is the one that my 7-year-old is reading on repeat right now. Ooh, and there's a doll as well. So I'll add that. Let me just pick another one we read last night. And so you can see I'm just searching for titles here. So if you had some in mind, but what's really cool is not only does it have the title information here, but it shows how many you have on hand or on order. And we can show that because we have your sales and inventory integrated from your POS system. And so that's a good thing to not include titles that maybe you don't have or you don't have on order or you don't want to promote. And so I can just include those there. There we go. So there's 3 titles. And then I can also pick which customers I want to send this email to. And there's lots of options. So you could send it to customers who have purchased from that section or department in your store before. You could use tags. You can get really fancy with tags. You guys might be familiar with tags in Edelweiss already. You can do all sorts of things with them. So you could use tags. You could send it to an individual customer. So like if I talked to Joe on the phone and he told me about his grandkids and I provided 8 recommendations for books that his grandkids might like, I could create an email just for Joe, send it just to Joe with those 8 titles, and then he could click and order them if he wanted to. We've seen some stores get really creative using 360 that way. Or you could send it to people who've purchased Harry Potter books before, or other authors before, maybe Rick Riordan books, and this one's kind of like that. And so I want to send it to people who've purchased Rick Riordan books before. We also have all of the publisher comps in here. So publishers provide comps for books in Edelweiss, similar books that probably will sell, similarly in your store. And so you can also select anyone who's purchased a comp for one of those titles that's in the email. And that's one of my favorites. I'm just going to click that. You could get. So whatever you want to select there. And then just like you would in another email marketing platform, you can preview it. And so this is where you'll see settings that you're used to seeing in any email marketing platform. So you can change the from if you want. Here's where you put your subject. Subject line, you can write a little message here. So maybe I want to put some people will put lots of information there. That's where they give an update to their customers, for example. And other times it's just a sentence or two to kind of introduce the titles or things that you're recommending. And then in here, campaign title blurbs. Blurbs is kind of a fun word, but it's just if you want to add a description. So you can see that here in the preview, by default, it's just showing the jacket cover or the image. But if I want to add a little descriptor, depending on what I've picked, if there was a staff review for the book I picked, you could select and the staff review. So it could be like, here's what Joe on our staff thinks about Dragons Love Tacos. You can always add a custom too. You could say, and then when I do that, it adds that little description right there. And you can do all sorts of things with this. You can go in, you can remove your logo there, and you can add a little splash image. I bet I have one here. Here we go. I love using Canva for images. I don't know if Jamie's nodding. For anyone who's not an actual graphic designer, Canva is a lifesaver. So I could do that. You can also change the button if it says buy, but maybe I just want to say learn more or pre-order or whatever it might be. So you can play around with all of these settings and preview it right below. Move things around if you want, but it builds it that easily. And then on the back end, we've connected it to either your e-commerce site on your website. You can also send them to Bookshop if you use Bookshop, so that when they click on that, it takes them right to the site as well. So from here, you can send yourself a preview. You can schedule it to send later. So maybe if you're working ahead, you actually don't want to send this out until early December or whatever, you could send it later. You can also just do a little trial and send it to one customer, just kind of a way to test it out. And that's all there is to it, pretty much. It really goes by that quickly. And then when it's completed, you can go in and check the results. And this is kind of what Jamie can talk a little bit more about. Everything's zero, unfortunately, in here because I'm in a demo account. But you can, just like in any other email platform, you can check, deliveries, how many people you sent it to, how many opened it, how many click rates. But unlike your Constant Contact and your MailChimp, you can also see how many people who got that email purchased one of those titles, how many of the people who got the email purchased other things in your store while they were at it, because that's really cool, right? Like they go to look at Dragons Love Tacos, and while they're on your site, they buy 10 more books. And then also, did any of those customers you emailed purchase anything from your store in the next 10 days? We call that P10, just to kind of say, maybe they got an email from you and goes, oh, I need to buy a book. And so that just reminds them to go out and buy something. And of course, unsubscribes too. And then if you were doing any publisher marketing dollars or collaborative consumer marketing dollars, you'd see that here too. So that's all I have, and I'll check out the chat. And then Jamie, if you have questions for me too, let me know, but I'll pass it over to Jamie.
Thanks, Sarah. I am going to talk a little bit about what our store has learned and done. And I know several stores are using 360 and probably have had different experiences. But what I love most about 360 is that it is super easy and quick to use, but has really amazing results for our store. Some of the things that we've learned, like, have been really helpful, I think. So I was saying earlier that one of our goals this year with the store was to figure out a way to target through email certain customers who like certain things, and we just could not find a way to do that that was not incredibly time consuming by digging through data on our POS. So this has really been a lifesaver. We started using 360 in March. We did our very first campaign on March 25th. Since then, I have been keeping track of all of our stats. I really love data and looking at all the stats of everything. And mainly because this was a new program, I really wanted to know, what are we doing that's successful? If we send out a campaign and it gets a ton of unsubscribes, what should we do different next time? So that very first 360 that we did, we had a 57% open rate, and we had 49 purchases from that email with an additional 89 halos. So I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. This is going to change our life. And it really has. It's really been great. Certainly the percentages have not stayed exactly that high. But considering that our e-newsletter open percentages are a good bit less than 57%, I was like, wow, this is a really great option to connect with customers. So overall, I have found that it is best to target as much as you can. The emails that we have sent just blanket to all of our customers. We have had the greatest number of unsubscribes. So I really do think that it works best if you are targeting a specific demographic. So for example, we sent a specific 360 campaign to all of our customers who bought Becoming to pre-order Barack Obama's book. And you can pretty much guarantee that, those people, those customers, that have already purchased something similar, they probably won't unsubscribe. So far for unsubscribes, we've only had a 0.4% unsubscribe rate. So I'm super happy with that. I hope it stays sort of the same. We have, since March 25th, sold over 1,500 books from 360 campaigns. And I'm sure bigger stores sell way more than that. But for us, it's been incredible, especially during COVID. It's been a really great way for us to reach customers with those staff picks, with those hand selling picks for each month. It's helped us increase our pre-orders. But I don't know that all of the customers wouldn't have purchased those titles that we pushed in those 360 campaigns. So, you can't know that data. But I have to believe that the more times you put a title in front of a customer, the better, and the more likely they are to purchase it. So if we do a 360, if we have it as a staff pick in the store, personal recommendations certainly always help sell. Let's see. So we have used the 360 campaigns for a variety of different reasons and ways. We have done a monthly kids and a monthly adult email to highlight books coming up in the next month that you might want to pre-order, and have had really good success with that. Our pre-orders are not great comparatively to other stores I know in the country. And this is something we've been trying to work on this year. So 360 has really helped with that. Our pre-orders have increased almost 2,000% this year. And a lot of those have come directly from the 360 campaigns. So that was just huge for us. We have not used the collaborative consumer marketing as an incentive to do a campaign. So I haven't built a campaign around which titles the publishers are giving money for. You could certainly do that, and I think it would be smart. But if it works out that we're highlighting a HarperCollins title that has some money attached to it, great. So far since March, I think we've made a little over $175 in that. So certainly doesn't hurt. But again, I'm not really seeking that out. A few tips that we have figured out for doing this for 7-ish months. We try to attach events when possible. And Sarah showed you where those events are. I feel like this gives a direct link and action for a customer to then go purchase a ticket or buy the event book or register for the event. We have been very virtual event heavy, so this might not apply to some stores that aren't doing virtual events. But I like to do, a specific, we sent one out today. We have Alexander McCall Smith coming December 1st. So I targeted all the customers who've purchased Alexander McCall Smith or similar, comp titles to his mysteries, and put the event on there too. So people can go ahead and register for that event when they get the email. So it's just an extra reminder for your events that are coming. You can also look and see which titles you have the most copies of in stock and do an email about that. So, oh my gosh, we are overwhelmed with books right now. And if you haven't been opened, your store might be as well. We're just packed to the gills, and we have certain books that were from events that we just have a ton of copies of. So we're looking at those titles and saying, oh my gosh, we have 40 copies left of Anxious People. How do we get rid of these books? So you can look and see which ones you might have the most copies of and put those together in an email like, hey, did you miss this, new release this year? It's one of our favorites. I've found that the time of day and the day of the week that we send the email does sort of impact our return. I try to balance them with when we send out our regular store newsletter. So you're not getting 2 emails at a time from us. There's also an option on 360 when you're setting up who to send it to that you can check a box that says, don't email anybody who's been emailed recently. And that won't email anybody who's been sent a 360 campaign in the last 7 days. And I think that is amazing to use because you don't want to overwhelm people. As you know, they'll just unsubscribe. So I try to balance the time of day and the day of the week that we send emails to customers, just to make sure they're not getting tired of us. We do try to target different audiences if we do end up needing to send 2 360s in a week. So we might send a kids targeted 360 and then like a romance adult, book club 360. So trying to target different audiences also helps you, send multiple ones in a week. Like I said earlier, I really do try to make it specific to customer purchases. I've just found in our stats that when we send an email to 10,000 customers, you're going to get more unsubscribes. If it's specific to a certain book, like the Barack Obama book, not all of our customers, want the Barack Obama book. So we try to be sensitive to that. So one thing to consider that we've had a little bit of an issue with is there is a way to customize your field in the email message for your customer's name. So I just make sure that your customer names in your point of sale system are accurate. We've had a couple of people let us know that they don't appreciate getting an email that's like to their husband's name or whatever. And it's just the way we have Basil, and it's just the way the system is set up for us. Like we can't avoid it. I still think it's nicer to send an email that says, Dear Sue, rather than, hey person, so I don't know, it's up to you. You might have a better system than we do for that. And then also just one like weird aesthetic thing that I like to do is just make sure that you don't include too many titles in your email, because for Gmail, when I get the test email that I send myself before sending a campaign, Gmail cuts off the message if you have too many titles listed. So we really try to stick to maybe 12. You can certainly do more than that. I mean, do whatever you want, but some people don't always look to the bottom where it says, read the whole message, to click here to see the whole message. So if there's something important at the bottom, that'll probably get cut off on a lot of email servers. So I do try to make sure that I have an even number of books represented, and then that there aren't too many. One thing that we are going to start doing that we haven't done very well yet is creating lists. And Sarah can certainly lead you through how to do that. But so for example, we have looked at all of our customers who are members of our Sign First Editions Club, and I've created a list for them. So I can easily select that list to send a 360 campaign to if I get signed copies of the new David Sedaris book. And like we get a signed pre-pack of 10 books of something, and you want to offer it to people, collect signed books. That's just a quick and easy thing to do. And you can just select the list rather than going through and hand selecting each customer, if that makes sense. So what we're going to do more of is create more lists. And I really want to target like our educators for a list. So if we have a kids event or some kind of like a book fair special, something like that, that we want all of our school contacts to know, I think that would be a really helpful one to do. I also want to create a list of all of our customers who live here in Winston-Salem, because we have a lot of people who've purchased, as you probably do too, this year because of COVID, purchasing from all over. And sometimes you have those local books or an event that's going to take place in the store that you might want to target local people to. So those are just two lists that we're going to work on. I really hope to use those more, and I think they'll be very helpful. The other thing that I hope to do more of is, as Sarah showed you, when you're looking through catalogs and you're looking for, maybe you're doing event grids or you're doing frontlist buying, those catalogs are so big. So I am all for efficiency and trying to not redo my work. So when you're going through those, if you see a lot of like spring books for kids, I would suggest go ahead and into 360 and create a campaign for spring books for kids. And then as you're going through that catalog, you can just flag books as you go. So then when you get to wanting to send out a spring books for kids email to everybody, it's already there with titles. You don't have to go back and search through the catalogs and say, what were the titles that I wanted to include in that? It's just amazingly helpful and a huge time saver. And then finally, I'll just say that this is not something to be scared of. I think there was a little bit of a learning curve the very first time we did it, just to make sure we were clicking everything. The support team at Edelweiss is so helpful. I know I've emailed Justin several times, who's on here, and they are so quick to respond and so helpful. So I would definitely recommend you try it and reach out to them if you have questions. But now at this point, it takes like 5 minutes to do a campaign that we see really great returns on. So it's a huge asset to your store. And I feel a little bit like I'm a cult worshiper or something with this, but I have talked about 360 so much, people like, you really should be using it if you're not using it right now, because it's a really, really great, easy, quick tool that will definitely get you returns. Like 1,500 books over 6 months for us is huge, that we wouldn't have sold otherwise. Maybe, maybe we would have sold some of them, but we've been closed a lot of this year. So that's just been a really big lifesaver. So thanks, Sarah, for that, the 360 team. I'll stop talking now, so if anybody has questions.
I take no credit, but I'll pass that around.
Well, I had a question for Jamie. Does Basil collect, it tracks customer purchases, and then does it also separate into what people are buying? How are you figuring that out?
Okay, I'm not sure I understood. Tell me again.
Well, how are you connecting customer purchases and what their likes and dislikes are? Is it through Basil? Is it, and then then are you uploading that to Edelweiss? How does that work?
So you don't have to do anything. Edelweiss does all the work for you, which is amazing. So you don't have to go back through, I don't have to go back through Basil and search for certain people. So like for the Alexander McCall Smith one I mentioned, I can just select my customers who've purchased any of his titles, and Edelweiss does that work for you. It immediately connects you to that because 360 connects with your POS data. So that is really a helpful tool, and it saves so much time.
For many stores, if you use analytics already, you can send us another file of your customer transaction data if your POS system allows that, and have made it easy with a lot of the POS systems. If for some reason you can't send us that customer data because you have limitations with your POS system for some reason, or you don't track it for whatever reason, you can still use 360. You just won't have quite as many, targeting and segmentation possibilities. But it's still function. And it's worth calling out. I also put a link to the page on our website that has the button for the sign up form too, because somebody had asked about that.
Easty, did you have a question?
I do. Since we use Basil too, hi Jamie. The customer part of that, my 68-year-old brain can't remember what interests all of our customers have, and I know a few of them have a wide variety of interests. How do you put the information for each customer in Basil that would key up? If you're doing a targeted email, how would you go about finding that in Basil?
So you don't have to. It's all connected based on your customer sales data. So if you have a customer who has purchased 10 books last week, you can go to 360 and, if you say select customers who've bought, a John Grisham book, it will select all of your customers who've purchased John Grisham books in the past 2 years. I think you can set the date on how far back you want to look. So you don't really have to do any of that. I will say we did upload recently all of our contacts from MailChimp to 360 that weren't already in there from Basil, because we do have contacts we send our newsletter to who haven't converted to a purchase yet. So I can send those people an email if I send it to all customers who have an email address, but they will not ever get an email until they make a purchase otherwise for the targeted emailing. But I'm hoping that if they get an email once in a while that I send to the whole customer base, like we just did a little holiday catalog thing and we put it online. So I sent this email, the 360, to all of our customer base that we have an email for. And I'm hoping that we'll get some of those MailChimp people who've been getting our newsletter but haven't made a purchase yet. I'm hoping we'll get some of those to convert to customers, if that makes sense.
Good. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
Any other questions? Oh, lady? Are you retracting your question?
No, I couldn't unmute. So Jamie, when you sent that holiday catalog, did you still just limit it to about 12 titles, or did you do more?
Yeah, I tried to pick on the cover, we have our staff's cumulative top 20 books. So I just picked a handful of those that represented different genres, and made sure we had a lot of authors of color and, different interests represented. But I did still limit that and just said below is a sampling of what's involved in our catalog. Click here to see the whole catalog, and put in a little graphic in there so you could click on that. I have had a lot of fun playing around with the different design options that 360 has, and so you can do your staff's Edelweiss reviews for your titles. I did that for a couple of them. It links directly to all of your staff's Edelweiss records. So that is really easy if you want to highlight specific staff blurbs, or you can just have a list of titles with the covers.
I've also seen stores get creative where they'll have maybe 4 top picks, but then they create a collection of all the titles in Edelweiss, and they can link to the collection at the bottom. So it's like, if you want to see more, click here and it opens up the entire.
That's a great idea. I'll write that down.
Is building
someone on our 360 team, Dan, he's over in England, but he also owns a bookstore. It's a really cute bookstore called it's for children, and but he uses 360 for his own store too. And so he is forever going, I would really like it if it did this. And we get lots of ideas for that as well. So if you're using 360, and I know, Jamie, you're great at this, and you keep getting ideas of like, I really want it to do this, or what if we did this? We're still actively developing and adding things. So we really appreciate people's feedback.
Yeah, I have one to send to you, Sarah.
Awesome. And you may not know this, Jamie, but Justin is not only our support team, but he's our director of product development. So if you give it to him, he'll sneak it right in.
Great.
Is building a list kind of like creating a collection? Is there a similarity there?
So I think the list you're talking about, Jamie, are lists of customers, right?
Right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So when you see a book in a catalog that you're matching to, you can match it to a customer at the time you're going through the catalog, or how is that working?
So when you go through the catalog, you can add it to either an event you're doing, which is a great recent addition, or to a 360 campaign. So in the campaign itself, when you look at your campaign, then you set who it's sent to. So when you go into that, you can say, here are the 10 titles I'm putting in this 360 campaign. You look at who you want to send it to, and you can check a box that says, send it to every customer who's purchased a book by any of these 10 authors. Send it to anybody who's purchased, any of these comp titles. So you set it up that way, if that makes sense.
I have a question.
One thing I did, go ahead, Nikki.
Because Edelweiss 360 seems very, it takes advantage of your sales history in order to, that's the power of it. For a new store, which is going to be uploading everything and has no sales history, how would you suggest that they create targeted emails? I mean, they may have customers they know like children's books. Would they create a list of customers in Edelweiss? What would be the best thing for them to do?
Yeah, we have brand new stores using it, or stores that tried to open during the pandemic, and so they haven't opened their brick and mortar store yet, but they have an online site already. And we've just worked with them personally to figure out the best way to do that for their stores, like depending on what data they have or what they want to accomplish. And there's definitely ways to take advantage of a good amount of the functionality, despite not having quite all of the bells and whistles quite yet. And so in that case, it gets actually better and better the more they use it, because then they start to get customer data and all of that. But it's definitely possible.
Sure. Okay.
We have time for one more question if anyone has something they want to hear more about. Okay, that was wonderful. Thank you so much. I love seeing how you created one, and Jamie, your stats were amazing. So it seems like people will really want to try this. I did see that one person asked about how do they sign up, and I was curious about that, Sarah.
Yeah, so if you click on the link in the chat, it takes you to sort of our information pages. You can click around if you want. You can see about some of those features I didn't mention today if you're curious to. And there's a sign up form there. And if you're an analytics store already, you already subscribe to analytics, whether that's our lower tier base camp or our full tier summit, then we really just kind of activate it for you. And we'll see if we can get that customer file from your POS system as well. But it's a really fast, easy process. If you're not an analytics store, then we basically sign you up as one and try to get the customer data at the same time we get your sales and inventory data. And I mean, we work with pretty much all the major and even not so major bookstore POS systems, in addition to Square and some other non-traditional ones as well. So.
All right,
If you
well,
have questions, you can email us too at 360support@abovethetreeline.com, and our team will get right back to you. Probably Justin or Shayna. They take most of the 360 stuff. They're awesome.
All right, thank you. Thank you so much. And we've recorded this, so we'll be posting it soon so you can review it if you had questions about what went on. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.